One man can change the world with a bullet in the right place.
Welcome back to the New to Pew podcast. This is episode 9, titled, Keeping It Safe. You may ask yourself,
who the fuck is that guy?
Well, that guy is the Bagman himself. Thank you for joining us.
I don't think that's ever going to get old.
I'm going to try.
And our lovely host, Max Fallis.
Yes, that's right. I'm big in Japan, ladies and gentlemen. That's
you forgot to introduce yourself.
Because I wanted you to do it. There we go. Now that we're
glad to be of service.
And everyone knows who we are, we're talking about keeping it safe. I'm going to start off with a little story that's got me in a bit of a mood. So,
another pathetic tale of woe from Max Fallis. We got to play like the sad Hulk music walking down the road at this point.
I'm going to say that it's playing right now because we're going to add it in post-production. So imagine the lonely Max Fallis walking down the highway as the piano plays.
Except not.
And my big toe sticking up in the air. Because why? Well, I'm going to tell you. So I'm sitting here with 2 broken toes. Why, Max? Well, I bought a new gun safe. Actually, not new. I bought a gun safe. And I end up breaking 2 toes while moving it into my storage spot where I wanted it to be. Yeah, I'm awesome. Check me the fuck out. Anyway, so we had this episode planned for a minute, and it just seemed very timely to bring it up now, since I am now hobbled a little bit with a cool new gun safe. So I want to talk about safe storage, both at home and in transit, because various rules apply when you're transporting with your firearm, crossing state lines, and also going through different states for those that are competitive shooters or going to hunting in another state. You know, they may have to bring a couple of things across certain borders. So let's start with the at-home stuff while I look for something that I sent you that I actually was looking into. I think it's like a trigger lock type system. And while we talk about safe storage at home, I'm going to look for it.
So I guess the most important thing is restricting access, right? Mm-hmm. That's always what I preach to my students is you don't want to allow access to the firearm by anyone who you don't want to have access to your firearm. So if your spouse isn't into guns and is not safe with guns, they should not have access to your firearm. You don't want your children to have unrestricted access to your firearm. You don't want a home intruder or a burglar who enters your home while you're away to have easy access to your firearm. Your state may also have specific restrictions on how your firearm is to be stored. So first and foremost, I think a safe is a good option. Be safe moving your safe so that your safe doesn't become unsafe and cause injury. I'm so sorry.
Too soon, man.
Over Macho Grande?
No, I don't think I'll ever get over Macho Grande. Those wounds run pretty deep.
I understand. And I'll be honest with you, when you told me what happened, I felt really bad for you. Like, that sucks. Here you're trying to make a good decision and be responsible and add a layer of security to your system, and you injure yourself in the process. Like, that sucks. And I'm sure some anti-gun organization will write that up as a firearms-related injury. And
Black feet
you're
matter.
not contributing to
Black feet matter. Yes, but as I've said before, and will probably say many times over, it's the will of the universe because it helps us create content for this show.
Again, I'm willing to create content without you suffering, so you don't need to suffer so much for your art, Max.
Do I though? Well, maybe. So
Just my opinion.
I got a cool stand-up safe. You recommended to me to do 8 rifle space-wise. I think it was 8. You said 8. It was definitely more than. It may have been 5. It wasn't 5.
The number 8 definitely came in there because my first safe was an 8-gun safe, and I had 1 gun at the time, and I was like, "Oh, I'll get an 8-gun safe. There's no way I'll fill that up." Yeah, it was like 2 years later, I needed another safe. So,
Jesus.
Yeah,
It's a slippery slope.
It is. It's a thing that happens. And, it's kind of like potato chips. Can't have just one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And depending on what your personal requirements are for storage, you can put your ammunition inside that safe and keep that locked up as well. There's any number of different ways of doing that. I think there's a right way and a wrong way. I've seen some wrong way. I know a gentleman who put his safe in the basement and then wanted to ensure that the guns never pointed at anyone, so put the muzzle down in the safe instead of muzzle up the way most people would because he had it in the basement, and the basement flooded and destroyed every firearm he had. And that was tragic, but basements aren't usually a good place. Like if your basement floods, not a good place to store firearms. Just my opinion.
Very true. Very true.
Cool, dry places are better for firearm storage. Same thing for ammunition because of the powder, all those things. But the other product you were looking at was a trigger lock mechanism, and there's a couple varieties of those. I've used several over the years, particularly early on because I like the idea of keeping my guns locked while I'm transporting them. Mm-hmm. And the firearms I had at the time, the trigger locks I was using were designed for firearms with a traditional, what I'll call a traditional trigger guard that's kind of oval shaped. Mm-hmm. So you could buy a bunch of these trigger locks and they'd fit almost any firearm you had. As firearm designs changed, and as I got into like ARs and Glock and other things, that doesn't necessarily hold true, and those trigger locks won't work well. They don't interface with those firearms properly, so they're not going to secure the entire trigger mechanism the way you want it to, because it's not enough to just close that off. If you can move the lock and actuate the trigger that way, that's still not a secure firearm.
Makes sense.
So the one you sent completely covers the trigger pack on the AR, and I've seen, again, there was an older one that I believe was called the Life Jacket. Mm-hmm. And that completely covered both the upper and lower receiver and looked like a life jacket. It was like a big clamshell that closed around the whole thing. So not only could you not access the trigger, but you couldn't access the action at all.
Hey, kid, what'd you do, jump ship? What? Well, what's with the life preserver?
You couldn't get to the charging handle. You couldn't get to the dust cover and the bolt carrier group. Like, everything was fully contained. There's another company out there that I believe is called IC13. If you look them up, they've got a really neat locking mechanism that actually goes into the action and locks your AR that way. So it would go in through your ejection port, right?
I have a padlock that does that. It came with my handgun, so you would put it up through the mag well and then out where your ejection port is on your rifle.
Right.
Handgun.
So that's a cable lock.
Oh, yeah.
And
okay.
For anybody who's listening who hasn't seen one before, it's kind of like a miniature bike lock, right? It's got a cable that can run through the gun and prevent it from being utilized, and then it locks for the key. What I'm talking about is a smaller device that plugs in and then has locking lugs that expand into the action or into the chamber and lock it that way.
Like a club, like the old club. You put it on your seatbelt, your steering wheel, and then extend it so it couldn't be removed.
Car thieves took advantage of my good nature, so I got the club. The club gives visible, reliable, affordable protection from car thieves. Put the tempered steel club on your steering wheel, and your car's not going anywhere until you want it to. The club is recommended by police from coast to coast, and it's affordable. The club. It's the kind of protection us pussycats need.
Yeah.
That's pretty slick.
And IC13 does a nice job on their stuff. I'm trying to think of what other locking mechanisms we have. So you can get a hard case and put padlocks on it. Mm-hmm. You can get a soft case and put padlocks on it. Soft cases aren't great for locking because if it's got a zipper, you can defeat a zipper with a ballpoint pen.
Yeah.
and just pop that open and get in there fairly easily. If you know how locks work, most locks ain't shit. When it really comes down to it, it's more of a polite agreement between civilized people that I'm securing this and you're not going to try to break it open. If you got bolt cutters, you can get past most padlocks.
True.
Let's call it what it is. But yeah, so there's different layers there. With your safe in your house, it's also a good idea to bolt that to the floor and to the wall so that the safe can't be removed. If someone were to break it, like hypothetically, you're on vacation and someone has all the time they need to get into your house and steal whatever they want. If that safe isn't bolted down, they could conceivably carry away that whole safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
The idea is to basically just make it as difficult as possible and to make them have to spend as much time as possible, because that's the ultimate deterrent. They want to get in quick. They want to get out. So
get it to the point where the juice isn't worth the squeeze, and there's so many layers to that onion that they have to peel back to get to this thing that it's just not worth trying. If you leave a gun out on the coffee table and then leave for 6 months and someone breaks into your house, good chance you're not going to find that gun when you get back.
Yeah.
Right. Just is what it is. So yeah, layer that up.
I'm not sure if okay, so being that I've been incapacitated for a little while, I haven't even like unpacked into the safe yet. You mentioned that, you know, some people lock up their ammo inside the safe itself, which has its, you know, ups and downs. If you got the space for it, great. But I actually just want to call people out who just dump their rounds into ammo cans all willy-nilly. Like, that is just barbaric in my opinion. And I know I'm the new to pew guy, and people are going to be upset with me and come at me with shots of blaring, pun intended. But
which is a good time to mention that if you want to send hate mail, you can get Max's attention by sending that to new2pew@blackbagresources.com, and he will happily read your emails on air and respond to them.
Subject: ammo can /FU Max.
Nice.
I see people like just they go. I mean, if you're buying in bulk, all right, maybe. But just taking it, again, I'm a little OCD. I like to store things right in the box and keep it. It's easy to stack. But you savages are just dumping it into the damn ammo can. It's ridiculous.
I'm with you, okay? And there was, so I will confess my sins to you and agree with you at the same time. I made a large purchase of shotgun shells at one point and was like, oh, this will look cool in this big ammo can if I dump it all in there loose. And then I went back and I was like, I have no idea how many are in here.
Yes.
So to me, it makes more sense to keep it in boxes strictly for inventory purposes, especially when you're dealing with really large quantities of ammunition. It's a lot easier to count boxes than count individual rounds.
Yeah.
Right.
My boxes are inside the ammo can, label facing up. So I can just, yeah, there's 200 in here. There you go.
Yeah, well, the other thing I've done is I've taken note cards and actually written out on the note card what's in that ammo can and thrown it in the ammo can with the ammo. And now we have the ammo stash stickers.
Yeah.
From BlackBagResources that I made up that have my business information and help you inventory. You can throw that on the front of your ammo can and put your caliber and quantity on there and track it that way. If you use a Sharpie, you'll have to, get another sticker, or if you use a dry erase, you can just change it out. But Kirk over at Stuck Not Custom makes those for me, and they're great. And by the time you're listening to this, it'll probably be close to the Allentown Gun Show. You can see me there and pick up a few.
I had no idea they were dry erasable.
Yeah.
Great feature.
Thank you.
Great feature.
I really thought long and hard about this, and it's a little thing that I'm kind of proud of, and didn't expect to discuss tonight. But here we are.
So
that's it.
Let's talk about transport.
You open the package.
All three. Never open the package. I like that. Rules.
You can't get anything done in a world without rules.
There's a lot of misinformation, different rules, different laws. And I had a discussion with a friend of mine when I sent him that trigger locking system. You know, hey, I'm thinking about grabbing some of these. They were like, good idea. And we were talking about like how we transport to go to the range. And I said, to be honest with you, like my goal is to make an officer as comfortable and relaxed and keep him that way, because I sent him a video in my group chat. I think the guy's name is Instructor Mike. He teaches like classes and stuff and has them on YouTube. And he did a video of him actually being pulled over. And one thing he did was he was open carrying on his right hip, and he had his hands in front of the camera, which was up on his dashboard, to make the officer see like he's got both of his hands here. He notified the officers, I'm carrying, it's on my right hip, and he thought ahead and had a lanyard around his neck underneath his shirt with his information on it. So there was no need for him to go for his wallet in his pocket or anything. And he used his thumbs to pull it out from underneath his shirt, and he presented it that way, all to maintain the calmness of the officers. And we were
so
going back. Go ahead.
Here's the thing. I've seen that video with Instructor Mike. I'm not well versed in all of his material. Mm-hmm. I suspect that he goes to that degree because he's had some negative experiences with law enforcement.
I'm sure.
I also think he goes way overboard to really kind of be over the top, almost what I would describe as maliciously compliant. Like, I'm going to be so ridiculously compliant that if you tell me I'm not complying, you're going to look like a complete jerk off.
Do you think that's like a setup? Like he's overly happy and compliant. That's the word I'm looking for. Overly compliant. Yeah. Just waiting for somebody to step out and say, "Ha! Look, I was." You think it's like that deep?
Right. Well, and again, because he's probably had some negative experiences, and whether or not they ended up in court, I don't know. But and I've got no evidence of this. Like I said, I don't know him beyond that video and maybe one or two others. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of the I'm not touching you with your sibling.
Oh, yeah. Touching me. She's touching me.
I'm not touching you.
Oh, you're touching me.
Not touching.
Touching me.
It's free air.
I'm just going to use my thumbs to pull this ID out of my shirt, okay? I'm going to go super slow so you don't get scared because I want to make sure the officer feels safe. Like, he's kind of mocking them at the same time. He's being polite. He's being professional. He's not doing anything untoward, but he's being, again, what I call maliciously compliant. He's making it clear that he's doing everything. And in reality, he's also the one in control here, more so than the officer, because he's showing you that I know your job better than you. I know what you're going to ask for better than you. I've already done everything to possibly make this as easy for you as it can be. And if you have anything to say about it, you're obviously just a complete jerk. He's not wrong, right? That's the other thing I want to point out. He's not wrong.
Like I know your triggers, so I'm going to call them out so you can't say I triggered you, kind of thing.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's a little bit in your face. And I'm on his side.
Yeah.
My beef is, why do we expect the average citizen with minimal training to know the professionally trained law enforcement officer's job better than the professionally trained law enforcement officer as the average everyday citizen who has to hold down a job that is not law enforcement?
Well, I mean,
err on the side, like, it just strikes me as a rigged game. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So I think we're getting off topic as far as that goes.
Well, yeah.
Let's just stick with best practices, okay? And I will play devil's advocate for a couple of things. I know some people who say, well, I'm not required to lock my firearm when I transport it. If it's secured in a case and not immediately accessible from the driver's compartment, I'm within compliance of the law. And I go, that sounds great until you get rear-ended in a car accident.
And it comes now to the front of your car because you got hit.
Well, no, it's not. No, not even that. But now your vehicle is compromised, and wouldn't it feel good to have an extra layer of security on that firearm?
Yeah.
Just in case, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you got to go nuts. If you got a cheap cable lock or a trigger lock, that's fine. But if there's a lock on the case, if it's a little more secure, and now you're dealing with a motor vehicle accident, doesn't that put everyone at ease too? Even if the old lady who rear-ended you is on her way to a Moms Demand meeting.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
She's got nothing to say because the sucker's locked. If Barney Fife shows up and he's twitchy because he keeps his bullet in his shirt pocket, but your firearm is secure, isn't that going to cause you a little less aggravation? So that's why I advocate for that. And that's really the only reason. I'm not so concerned with the legal aspects, but just best practices.
Gotcha.
So yes, within the letter of the law, some states you can throw it in a sack and tie it with a string, and that qualifies as proper transport. Not necessarily best practice, right? I know people who store guns in their vehicles because it's legal in their state. I don't consider that best practice either.
I agree.
There you go.
So
safe storage, keeping it safe. What else do we want to touch on?
I mean, obviously, most people that would be listening to this, I would assume, have had a quick talk from a range officer. So that would hopefully cover safety at the range. When you put it on a table, make sure it's pointed down range. Typical stuff. Like, personally speaking, again, like I put the cable lock through, put it in the pouch, put the pouch into the bag, lock the bag up, into the back of the car. That's pretty much how I transport at the moment.
Right. And then you've got the bungee cords and the chains in the trunk that you secure everything down with, and then the lock on the trunk, plus the padlock on the trunk, and then the 17 switches that you have to flip. That's your OCD.
And then the car gets put onto the back of the tractor trailer, and then the trailer meets me at the range. That's how I transport.
Right.
Because I want no issues.
Inside a secured shipping container. Right.
Yeah.
With the numbered seal on it. And a proper bill of lading.
I can't take no chances, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't want to take any chances because, again, my biggest concern is, getting pulled over. And one of the things that me and this other guy were talking about is like declaring it. So personally speaking, as somebody who's constantly on the road, if I get pulled over, the license, registration, the insurance, my gold family member PBA card that I got from my friend who's in corrections literally has my name on it, so it's not a one-time use thing like your average PBA card. And I would offer up my firearms ID and automatically notify them that I'm heading to the range. I have a firearm in the back. This is where I'm going, because I am erring on the side of caution of like declare everything. If I'm speeding, it's not something that an officer would be freaked out about, I don't think.
Again, consult an attorney, right? Evan Knappen has a great podcast. He's a lawyer in New Jersey. He's the premier firearms attorney in New Jersey. He also does work in several other states. He's a real life lawyer with real life knowledge on all these things, and I would say consult him. My opinion, and I am not an attorney,
tell me how you feel,
is I never disclose anything more than I absolutely need to. We keep it short and sweet. If he doesn't ask me about a gun in the car, I don't tell him about a gun in the car. If he doesn't ask me where I'm going, I don't tell him where I'm going. And I avoid as many questions as possible. Now, some people will claim that is a privilege that comes with the color of my skin. However, I have been detained on the side of the road. I've been cuffed. I've been put down on the concrete. I don't think those cops gave a damn what color I was.
Putting up with them crackers all day long.
Another one of your favorite audio clips.
Yep.
Yeah, in my experience, I don't volunteer shit. He says license, registration, and proof of insurance. He gets license, registration, and proof of insurance, not anything else. Now, with that said, I have a whole stack of PBA cards that I am too dumb to use. And every time I get pulled over, I forget I have those fuckers. So
I keep mine right where my license is. So if I'm pulling out one, I'm pulling out the other. They're all together, man. They're all together.
And I've told all my cop friends, like, stop giving me these things because apparently I'm too dumb to use them.
I think the difference is personal comfortability. Like, I'm not uncomfortable giving a little bit of extra information to an officer being pulled over because I don't want an uncomfortable interaction with an officer. That's me.
In a conversation with Evan Knappen regarding a similar subject, his exact words to me were, what part of anything you say can and will be used against you don't you fucking understand?
Pledge allegiance to that, my brother.
That is quote unquote.
Well, this is probably going to go down the wrong way, but my thinking is that the lack of information can also be held against you or could cause a negative reaction of surprise and possible overreaction. No. That's I'm
not saying lie to the officer. I'm saying don't volunteer anything.
I hear you.
Right.
I hear you.
That's all. And again, you can take a look at cases like Shanine Allen, who was out of state, had a concealed carry permit from Pennsylvania, came into New Jersey, was pulled over, felt she was doing the right thing, declared that she had her firearm and her concealed carry permit, and was subsequently arrested and charged and jailed because of that, and ended up being pardoned later on. But
once this dust settles and all the facts come out,
the process is the punishment, and that can hem you up for a long time.
It's subject to the people. You know, we have two different people here on the show with two different point of views on preparing for the interaction kind of thing. So nobody's
vastly different experiences too, right?
That too. Getting back on track. What other?
But you're so big.
It's the wrong episode. So, getting back on track, what kind of keeping it safe tips can we offer our listener?
So it's a new generation, right? Older generations were known for keeping a revolver in the sock drawer. I can't tell you how many places I went as a kid growing up, and long guns like hunting rifles and hunting shotguns were kept in soft-sided cases under the bed. And we knew not to touch those things. My wife grew up on a farm in Kansas where a loaded 12-gauge shotgun was left standing by the front door to deal with coyotes that would come and attack the sheep on the farm. That would be specifically prohibited in the states we're talking about, because leaving a loaded firearm within easy access of a minor is a crime. And you are, at the time of purchase, you're given a little form that reminds you of that. So those are things to avoid. With that said, a self-defense firearm needs to be in a state of constant readiness. So if we look at, the NRA rules, always keep the firearm unloaded until it's ready to use. Self-defense firearm has to be loaded because it always needs to be ready to use. You don't get to choose the moment when you have to defend yourself. So you're going to have to balance those things. Do you have kids in the house? Do you have are you caring for an elderly adult who's not altogether with it mentally? Is there someone with mental health in your home? What layer of security is right for you based on your individual situation? Those things will vary. And there's a lot of nuance to that. It's not just a cut and dry, black and white, yes or no binary answer as far as I'm concerned. There's a lot of different options. There's something called concealment furniture. Right. If you look at NJ Concealment Furniture, a good friend of mine, Dan Ingram, owns that company, and you can hide things in plain sight, and he can set up locking mechanisms on those things so that you have either a key or a key card or a key fob or numerical code that has to be entered, fingerprint ID, any of those things. You also have safes that come with any variation of locking mechanisms on them.
You know what would be dope? Because I wanted to bring up the concealment furniture concept. I've never been one to like to advertise what I have, especially now that I'm getting the firearms and stuff. You know, having it on the wall like some folks do. I've never been a fan of that, but I dig the concept of the concealment furniture. I think you showed me a table once, and there was another. What would be great, and I'm gonna put this out in the radio airwaves now for your friend to officially adapt, and only him, to have the American flag concealment furniture. But the stars, you got to put certain stars and certain for to open,
right?
Like make
the
that
stars
the thing.
Of the keypad?
Yes,
yeah,
yes. And you can program which stars you want. You know, there's little membranes switches on the back, and you could do like you know, star number 2, star number 5, star number 12, or whatever. So that's only for him to use. Copyright, patent pending, official. I like that idea.
I'm sure it's already been stolen.
No,
but
no,
that's all right.
No, I refuse to accept that possibility. That's for him only. That's great.
I will call him tomorrow and let him know, and then be sure to send him a copy of the podcast when this one airs. Because he's done concealment flags. Concealment flags have been a thing for a long time. You know, he's done mirrors and pictures and every conceivable piece of furniture you can think of, coffee tables and coat racks and clocks and
I'm thinking of
you name it.
G.I. Joe
corner hutches and
Retaliation, when they go into Bruce Willis's kitchen, and behind every cabinet it just comes out of everything.
Try not to stretch her up. Idol's a little rough and neutral.
I ain't gonna be in neutral.
That would be
certainly
awesome business.
Don't know anyone who has a similar setup in their house.
No, you don't, and it's a shame.
No,
it's a total shame.
Yeah, it's too bad, because that would be cool. You want to come over for a barbecue?
Of course. I'll bring the ribs. So I think for the audience, there's options. There's a lot of options. You definitely want to maintain some level of security and some level of safety. You know, my big concern, I mean, we've had this discussion off air. I don't have visitors to my house. It's not a thing. So I have children, and their friends don't come over, but every now and then my wife may invite somebody over, and I don't like having anything out. I wouldn't hang my rifle on a wall like some folks do. I don't want to advertise. So having concealed options, I think, is a great thing. And it's also a good happy medium between having it ready, but also not having it out and advertised. So I think I'm going to look into some of that concealment furniture stuff. Once he gets that star keypad going, it's a guaranteed sale. Before you get your carry permit, would you consider carrying your handgun while you're at home? You can, so it's within the confines of the law to carry your handgun loaded in a holster at home. I don't think so. Only because of the bulk. Like, I like to lay on my couch and sprawl. And also, too, I think it's because I'm not used to having it on my hip. The first time, referencing another episode, when we did the head of the class episode, like, that was the first time I actively wore it loaded on my hip. I've practiced dry fire and stuff. I don't know what it would take for me to be that comfortable with it on my hip to just casually have it around the house. That being said, there are other measures, you know, in place in case, God forbid, I need to get to something. But it would take some comfortability and also comfortability with my family in the house, with them, like, hey, there goes Dad and that big bulky thing on his hip that we know not to fuck with. So I don't know how long that would take to build that comfortability level.